Could he now face a criminal prosecution?
And we hear from the key witnesses, the survivors and police officers who battled to save lives on the pitch.
I didn't do enough, you see. How can you ever lose a child? That's awful.
The cheers and the tears, the shouts and the sobs from the families said it all. This was a verdict that they had waited 27 long years to hear. Tonight, finally, they have truth and justice. For a quarter of a century, the Hillsborough football stadium disaster on the 15th of April 1989 has officially been an accident. Something which the police and the emergency services couldn't be blamed for, couldn't be held accountable for. The only ones who were blamed were the fans. Not anymore.
Just after 11 o'clock this morning, in a special courtroom in Warrington, the inquest jury handed down its conclusions. The 96 Liverpool fans were unlawfully killed. Killed in a police operation which was badly planned, badly led, and in the words of the jury, grossly negligent. Criminal prosecutions could now follow. Well, our Merseyside reporter Andy Gill has been following proceedings throughout, and he was there this morning for the dramatic conclusion.
Now you'll all believe us. We were crying, we were shouting, we were shaking.
How long have they waited for this day, the families who queued for their place in court?
I've never experienced anxiety like it before ever in my life.
How long the families who travelled from Liverpool to Warrington?
There's so many emotions going around this morning for us all.
How long? It depends how you measure it. 2 years since the inquest began, 25 years since the original inquests in Sheffield returned verdicts of accidental death, to the disbelief and fury of the families. 27 years since the tragedy. Today, though, would be different. The courtroom was quiet until the coroner read out to the jury the question, "Are you satisfied so that you are sure that those who died were unlawfully killed?" He said to the jury forewoman, "Was your answer yes?" And she replied, "It was." 27 years of anger and frustration broke in spontaneous cheering and weeping. An impromptu celebration from people who still didn't quite believe what they'd heard, that Hillsborough was not an accident.
And I just prayed, put my hands together and prayed to my son and the other 95. Please, God, you're going to sleep well tonight, James, as with the other 95. And they are. They're all going to sleep well tonight.
I never thought in my wildest dreams that we would get this decision. I always hoped, I dreamt that we would get the decision. I'm only glad we did.
The jury said a series of failings contributed to the disaster, among them the layout of the stadium and the failure of police and ambulance officers to react quickly enough. But fan behaviour did not play a part, and later there was criticism of authorities who tried to blame supporters during these inquests.
In these very proceedings, we witnessed a strong campaign by ex-senior police officers continuing to deny responsibility.
Separate criminal and police misconduct inquiries continue. Today, though, was about a wait finally over.
27 years of talk, I'm done it.
Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Warrington.
Well, joining me now are two very important people in that fight for justice. Jenny Hicks, who lost her daughters Victoria and Sarah, and Steve Kelly, who lost his brother Michael. Thank you both very much for joining us this evening. I'd just like to start, really, when you heard the jury's answer to question 6, was it unlawful killing? What were your immediate thoughts, Jenny, when you heard that?
Relief. Utter and total relief that finally, after 27 years, a jury had come to the right conclusion.
Steve?
Well, it was quite a shock because we heard the first 5 questions and yes was answers to every one of them. So by the time we got to number 6, the emotions were very high anyway. Yeah. And I just looked around at the people surrounding me. There was tears flowing, people were holding hands, clutching at each other, gasps were coming from the court. And, you know, it was a very momentous moment. And you could see the relief on people's faces, and it was a truly brilliant moment for all the families and survivors.
Steve, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you said you weren't sure that you wanted to see anybody go to jail now. Do you still feel that?
Well, whether we will or not, because the main people we were looking at to go to jail are possibly too old these days. But whether we'll get that, we don't know. But that'll be for others to decide in court later on. Now, as we've got this decision today, the DPP will make the decision, and that will be down to them and other people who are more qualified than me to make them decisions.
Jenny, this has been a huge fight, and I know you've lost so much. Is this justice, or is justice really still to come, do you think?
Justice is to come. This was the truth today. I think the true justice will come when we have accountability, because I do believe that a conclusion like we've had today from today's jury has to be followed up. You're looking at 96 innocent deaths. Those 96 people were unlawfully killed. So yes, accountability's got to follow, I think.
For now, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, the cry today, as in many days over the years, has been justice for the 96. 96 football supporters who just went out on a sunny Saturday to go and support their team in the FA Cup semi-final in Sheffield. Over the years, the cry for justice has been all about them. Here are some of their stories.
I watched from the kitchen window as he walked up the path opposite the house, and he turned and waved. I waved back. He looked so happy, and I thought to myself, will he give me one last wave? I didn't know that would be the last time I would see him.
I really do not have the words to express how much I loved and treasured my son, my firstborn.
Gerard Barron, Senior, 1921 to 1989. Christian, sportsman, serviceman, family man, worthy citizen.
The house was always stocked with his favourite things: cornflakes, Kit Kats, bacon, mushrooms. A habit that proved hard for our mother to break even after his death.
People say time heals. It doesn't. You simply learn to live with your grief. He did nothing wrong that day. He went to watch the team he loved and came home to me in a coffin.
Just some of the stories of the 96. We'll hear more during the remainder of the programme. But the 27-year Hillsborough story has been marked by reviews, independent panels, private prosecutions. But the inquest which ended today in Warrington was on an altogether different scale. A colossal forensic analysis and the longest jury hearing at over 2 years in British legal history.
And the BBC's reporter Ben Schofield has been in court for every day of evidence. He has been picking through the key statements and speaking to some of the key witnesses.
Now justice! Where's the justice now?
I think there may be a slight overflow in the crowd at the Liverpool end, at the Leppings Lane end of the ground.
2 decades after Britain's worst stadium disaster, the longest inquests in history.
The referee's going to have to stop the game. There's an overflow behind the goal.
The court heard stories of survival.
My feet weren't touching the floor and I couldn't breathe.
Witnesses spoke of how lives slipped away.
I couldn't believe that he died. I remember just saying to him over and over again, breathe, please breathe, please breathe, please breathe.
Hillsborough ground control, urgent message. Go ahead.
There were claims of failures by the emergency services and admissions of individual regret, including from those at the very top of the command chain. As the court investigated the deaths of the 96, emotion was never far from the surface. The jury heard from more than 500 witnesses and were taken to around 4,000 pages of evidence. At times they were visibly upset at the evidence they were hearing. A dangerous crush at the turnstiles. Police have lost control. The jury was asked if the fans were at fault. Today it ruled the supporters weren't to blame. When police opened exit gates to relieve the crush, no one warned the officers inside. One sergeant said he could have prevented the disaster in minutes.
All it needed was someone to pass me a message and say, we're going to open the gate, close the tunnel. And I could have sent one of the PCs back up and they would have just locked it.
The crush at the turnstiles was transferred inside. According to one expert witness, terraces which didn't meet safety standards were packed to twice their safe capacity.
The chaos, the carnage.
Val Yates gave evidence about her experience in Pen 4.
I was hanging off someone's arm, like their arm was across my throat, and I was asking them to move their arm. But when I looked, they looked dead to me.
David Duckenfield hadn't spoken in a court for more than 20 years. This time, he admitted his failures. This is where Mr. Duckenfield sat as he gave evidence for 6.5 days to the inquests. During that time, he admitted he made grave mistakes and that his failures directly caused the 96 deaths. And this is where the bereaved families sat to try to take in his evidence. Their silence turned to shock as they heard Mr. Duckenfield admit that he had lied about fans forcing their way into the ground.
Forest End now to attend to this problem.
One expert said the police's reaction was confused and lacked leadership. Another said the way the ambulance service initially responded was woefully inadequate.
A lot of things went wrong that day and a lot of people didn't do things right that day.
Former police officer Fiona Nichol witnessed the emergency response firsthand. She helped pull 14-year-old Adam Spearritt from Pen 3 and then tried to revive him. After giving evidence, she met Adam's family. They thanked you in court through their legal team for what you did that day. What was it like meeting them?
I didn't do enough, you see. How can you ever lose a child? That's awful. I'm sorry.
The jury heard how scores of police officers' reports were vetted and then changed. Among them were Sergeant Crawford's. He wrote that there'd been fewer officers deployed near the tunnel, but only found out that paragraph was deleted when he was visited by the police watchdog in 2014.
I wasn't happy. And I said that at the time to the IPCC. It was my observations, my opinion, and I thought it was important. And it was removed because it was criticism.
I felt they were trying to blame and scapegoat us. And if the opportunity did come, they would throw us to the wolves, basically, to get themselves away. I always kept quiet because I was afraid.
Senior officers denied there was a cover-up. They said they were acting on legal advice. Today, the inquest jury returned its conclusions. Jurors weren't allowed to convict anyone of a crime. The police investigations into Hillsborough and the aftermath continue. Ben Schofield, BBC North West Tonight in Warrington.
Well, as we heard in Ben's report there, former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield could now face criminal prosecution.
He was the match commander at Hillsborough, and Dave Guest has been analysing his fateful decisions that April afternoon.
A grieving father confronts the former policeman who had just admitted his mistakes caused his son's death. It was an admission Barry Devonside had waited decades to hear.
He was gutless and he was spineless in not coming out and admitting what he did.
David Duckenfield was in charge of policing at Hillsborough on that fateful day. But it isn't only the relatives of those who died who have contempt for the former chief superintendent.
I got the feeling that the man was obnoxious, arrogant and a bully.
Gary West served almost 30 years with the South Yorkshire Force. He now runs a gift shop near Rotherham, but he recalls being a young PC when David Duckenfield first arrived at his station in Sheffield.
Basically, we're subjected to something like a 20-minute one-way conversation about how it was going to be. It was his way or the highway.
Weeks later, this was Gary in the midst of the horror at Hillsborough.
96 people went to a football match. They didn't go home. That's not right. The police should be able to deal with that situation.
The layout around the Hillsborough Stadium's changed a lot in the past 27 years. Back in April 1989, there was a wall running along the edge of this car park. At the end of the wall were some